Hello, everyone. I'm Madison Fair, and today I'm here with Dr. Lane Perry, the director of the Center for Community Engagement and Service Learning organization here at Western Carolina University. We are here today to discuss the organization itself. I'm so glad you could join me today, Dr. Perry. We're going to start off with some questions. How did you get involved with the Center for Community Engagement and Service Learning, and why did you choose to?
Yeah, well, one of my most fond memories, anytime I've ever been in a classroom environment where I'm formally learning, has been connected to service. I think back to when I was in 5th grade and went and did one of our first beach cleanups that I'd ever been a part of, and I realized that from that experience that the service in its own right can be valuable, but the questions that it leads to can also be quite impactful and provocative and also educational. And so through the process of doing service, I realized that there's so much more that can be learned about what it is that you're doing, whether that's something related to systems and structures that are sort of informing the way our world works. And so that's sort of what inspired me from the very beginning. And after that, I said, look, what's a way that we can do this for a career or maybe even a calling in some ways? And so I was able to find a position here at Western Carolina University in the Center for Community Engagement, and the rest is kind of history at this point.
So service has always been in your life ever since day one, and it kind of just grew as you grew, right? It's really interesting. What is the purpose of the Community Engagement and Service Learning organization here at Western?
The purpose is to engage students with bigger questions, sort of the 30,000-foot view there if you think about it. But specifically the way we do that is by getting students to partner with faculty members and to partner with the community to try and find the space and place where those three entities or stakeholders can overlap to actually ask questions that are a little bit bigger than sometimes the simple answers that we wind up getting within the walls of our classroom. And so simply put, we try to engage students with the community in hopes that we create a civic spirit and civic habits for when they walk across stage. Because not only are we as universities creating nurses and doctors and teachers and business people, we're also teaching members of the community. We're teaching the next generation of citizens. And it's important that those students aren't only practicing and preparing to be great nurses and teachers and doctors, etc., but they're also preparing to be great citizens of the communities they choose to live in.
Right, because you can't just get everything you know from just a classroom. It's good to go out of boundaries and explore and engage in the community. How does this organization impact the campus of Western Carolina University and its students?
I think that you make a good point with the idea of pushing boundaries. I think that that's one of the areas that we really focus in a lot, is trying to find ways to make sure that there aren't boundaries, because when it comes to learning and when it comes to the real world, there really aren't boundaries. There's this theory within ecology called the edge effect, and it's essentially where two habitats or ecosystems come together and connect or create sort of a third space in a lot of ways. And that edge effect, there's completely different species that have evolved to address the conditions of the environment they're living in that are different than environment A or B, where those edges are coming together. So this third environment, the C environment, essentially is new. And that's essentially what service learning and community engagement strives to do, is to establish and define, at least in some way more than you can do within a textbook alone, that third space or that C space. And so the center strives to make impact in that space for students, with faculty, and then of course with our regional community.
I know mostly, of course, students can be involved, but my question is, are students the only individuals who are impacted by this organization's work?
No, that's a great question. Students are one of our primary stakeholders, right? If we were a university and we didn't have any students, I don't know what we would be. And additionally, I think that students are the greatest resource that an institution has. And if a university can figure out a way to leverage that resource, student hours, student passion, student capacity, students striving to learn, if institutions can find a way to leverage that, then I think that institutions can have a greater impact in any other form or fashion. But those aren't the only individuals that we work directly with in order to do the work we do. I would say some spaces and places on campus can work only with students, and that's awesome. That's a great place to be, and they can really leverage that capacity. But in the Center for Community Engagement, we primarily focus on trying to maximize the resources and the capacity that aren't only found with our students, which we know is one that's rich with opportunity, but also the resource that is our faculty on campus and our resource that is our community. And find a way to leverage that sort of trinity, as it were, of learning and development and time and energy and passion, all pointed in the direction of community development. You can start to see real impact ripple across a community in a positive way.
People other than students can get involved in the Community Engagement Engagement and Service Learning Organization. We know that. But can you give us a little bit more intel on what exactly they can get engaged with here?
Yeah, for sure. With faculty, we have an Institute for Community Engagement that sits down and works with faculty over an academic year in order to help better prepare them to develop learning outcomes that are of the higher order nature, to develop community partnerships that meet certain requirements and principles that we know create great partnerships, to turn those experiences into research so that faculty can leverage that currency in their own personal career advancement. We also work with community partners to develop those relationships. We have a couple of fairs on campus, one in the fall and one in the spring, and we invite anywhere between 50 to 60 community partners across those two fairs so that students can come by and engage with those partners and put names and faces and handshakes together in order to start that process of actual real-life community impact. We also work with students in myriad ways. We have a learning community. We do around 25 days of service that gets students off campus, gets students' heads out of their books, gets them out of their residence hall, and puts them into the community to actually see what it's like, perhaps in the real world.
Can just individual citizens also participate as well?
Yeah, we have a lot of folks who come out to engage in projects that we help organize. Folks from across the area. Specifically, an example is with the Jackson County Board of Elections. We have a polling place on campus that the students leverage their resources, right? This is an example of that leveraging of student resources. They leverage their resources in order to obtain a polling place on campus, and it's one of the highly active polling places in our Jackson County region. And so under those conditions, we have community members who come on who vote in that polling place. We have community members who help actually run the polling place on our campus, and we provide parking and work through all the logistics. So yeah, there's lots of ways for communities and citizens to get involved with the center, and in turn for the center to get involved with them as well.
I went to Democracy Day just to check it out. I got some footage there as well. It was amazing just seeing locals there and students working together, just trying to get people out there, get their voice out there and vote. Who can a student or person contact to find direct information?
Yeah, everyone loves contacting a person. I'm a little bit old-fashioned. I think I like to contact a person in person, not only via email or phone. But that being said, you can get a hold of the Center for Community Engagement by way of our Facebook page, by way of our Instagram and Snapchat. We're out there under the Center for Community Engagement and Service Learning at Western Carolina University. We're easy to find. We also have about 5 people who work in the office who you can reach out to via email. I think the best email, if you want to be funneled to the right person, if you email me at laneperry@wcu.edu, I can connect you to the person on my staff who can, help meet you where you are in order to do that. Additionally, we have a space located in the Belk building, which is where the center exists. And if you want to come and see us, we're in room 273, and we always have the office doors open from around 7:30 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. Come on down and see us, and we're happy to help.
So you guys are very, very open to students and everyone. I like that. That's perfect.
Yeah, you got to be this day and age.
My next question is, where does the Community Engagement and Service Learning Organization find its volunteer partners at?
Yeah, well, we have around 130 community partnerships across the region, which is fantastic. And so each of those partners we engage with to a varying degree each year. Sometimes we're working with an organization more intimately or intensely over a shorter period of time. Other organizations are sort of cornerstone organizations that we work with all the time, and students are continually being funneled there. So community partners can engage with us in as many ways as even students can. It's just about reaching out and making a connection. And a lot of times it just starts with a simple meeting, a cup of coffee, and listening to each other and to determine what the other person might have as their goals or as their objectives that they're trying to meet. And we just try to find a way to help meet people where they are, try to create these mutually beneficial and reciprocal partnerships with lots of different organizations and people.
Are your projects only in Cullowhee and Silva locations, or do you guys branch out more than just North Carolina?
Really, really great question. We primarily spend a majority of our time, energy, and resources working as locally as possible. And so that really includes about an hour driving radius of the Cullowhee campus. Now then, that doesn't mean that that's where we stop. We have alternative weekend experiences that go to locations around 3 to 4 hours away. That includes places like Knoxville or Charlotte and other places in between. And so we'll do a 3 or 4 day experience out to those locations and work on a community issue within those communities that we're partnering with. Additionally, we also do alternative fall and spring breaks where we'll send students out to places further afar. So we've been known to go to Wilmington, or have been known to go to New Orleans or even New York for some of those projects. We engage students in those communities as well. Now, those are done in a slightly different way. Many of our partnerships that are more local are more sustained and continual free flow of volunteers into those spaces.
What different type of projects does this community engagement and service learning organization work with? For example, do you guys give back to the community, help with the needy, or do you guys just do the basic volunteer kind of ideas?
We run the gamut. You have to meet students where they are, and you also have to meet community partners where they are. Not every student has done a substantial amount of service work and is looking to jump into the deep end on those things. So you have to do what I like to call priming the pump. Community partners need priming of the pump type levels of service, which looks a lot like going and lending a hand, right? Getting some sweat equity, serving meals at the community table, pulling weeds at the community garden, picking up trash off the side of the road. I mean, these are all the basic levels of the ecosystem that is community engagement service learning, and you can't leave those responsibilities in the dust because you only want to do the things on the higher end of the service learning continuum. That being said, our goal is to continue to push students to get more deeply engaged in the community, and maybe instead of just picking up trash on the side of the road, students might come to a place where they're asking questions as to why that stuff is being thrown on the side of the road and what types of items are being thrown onto the road. And then before you know it, you might have an advocacy campaign whipped up to address the to-go items that are the primary culprit of the trash on the side of the road.
I can definitely vouch for that. I just did Mount Trashmore. I had a lot of fun with that, and I learned a lot too.
Yeah, and you see the sorts of things in there, and you wonder what would the price be to have biodegradable items that when it does get thrown out of the window, or maybe you have an awareness campaign trying to mitigate that from ever happening, but that's probably less likely, versus something around a biodegradable to-go cup that if it winds up on the side of the road, it's just going to turn into wildflowers or something. And I know that that's probably a little bit of a far-fetched imagination of the future, but I mean, look at where we are and look at where we were and how far we've come. And I think that that same level of development is possible moving forward. You also ask if we give back to the community in other ways beyond just engaging students in a range of ways on the continuum of community engagement and service regarding depth and intensity and types of projects that are being done. We are in the middle of a fundraising campaign right now in order to help support students and to help faculty and to help support the community in the projects that every one of those three constituent groups are doing. And so we are pushing towards $10,000 right now raised just this semester alone. And our goal is to get to $25,000. So,
Whoa.
Yeah, it's crazy.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so we can help fund student fellowships, student scholarships, and community partnerships.
How does the Community Engagement and Service Learning Organization promote themselves, and what sites can we find this organization on, like Facebook or Instagram?
We run the social media gamut. You can find us with just a simple search on those platforms. Just search Community Engagement WCU, Community Engagement Service Learning WCU, and you will find it. You all know what I'm talking about, how easy it is to find things if you know the key search words. We also have a website that's servicelearning.wcu.edu. If you go there, the first thing that'll hit you in the face is a video, a 15-second little commercial that demonstrates some of the work that we do. Very quick, very fast, doesn't take a lot of time to watch and to capture the spirit of our center. And then you do one quick scroll down and you'll see our live calendar that's updated every single day with community opportunities from across the region. So whenever we hear students say they want to get involved, we give them that email, we give them that URL and say, scroll down twice and you can find a project that's going to get you going.
How often are these opportunities available? Do you guys do a weekly kind of basis or more of a monthly basis?
Again, we run the gamut here as well. We have projects that are consistently scheduled for every Friday or for every Tuesday. We have a calendar of events that's mapped out a whole year in advance that has about 20 to 25 programs on it that you can go ahead and mark your calendar 4 months in advance. Or you might find out about something that's happening tonight that we post on the Facebook page or that we post on our calendar so that you can keep an up-to-date live feed. In addition to all of those updates, we provide a weekly listserv. If you want to be added to that listserv, send us your email address. So email me at laneperry@wcu.edu or servicelearning@wcu.edu and send your name and your email address and say, add me to the listserv. We will send you a listserv that has a dozen new, updated, weekly community engagement projects every single Monday evening. So you can say, hey, I don't have any time this week, delete. Don't have any time this week, delete. Oh, I have some time this week. I have a responsibility for a class that I need to get some service involved. Boom, check out that listserv and you can sign up for the project just with 2 swift clicks. It's so easy to get involved. The hardest part about getting involved is making the choice to get involved, not the follow through.
So this organization works year-round, not just the academic school year?
Yeah, we're alive and kicking 12 months out of the year here.
Is there a difference between service learning and community engagement? How do they correlate?
For simplistic purposes, because it's easy for academics to convolute terms that seem to make sense at face value, community engagement is the more more encompassing term, and it includes a lot of different activity. Community engagement includes community partnerships, right? That's a field in its own right, is community partnership management and development. And our new chancellor who's coming in, Chancellor-elect Brown, she actually has a background in community partnerships and community health and public health, which is so exciting. But that's one area, right? And then volunteerism, right? Just going out and doing some of the days of service activities I mentioned earlier, which is like picking up trash on the side of the road or weeding at the local garden or serving meals at the local food pantry. There's a lot of opportunities like that. And then you keep going through some of the additional examples that are encompassed within the term community engagement, and you'll find yourself to the term service-learning. And service learning is what happens in the classroom. So when we have students that are enrolled in a designated course that meet 3 primary high-level criteria, those students are in a service learning designated course. And we've got around 2,000 students enrolled across 100 course sections at Western. That's where service learning sort of deviates slightly from community engagement. Community engagement is the larger umbrella term that captures a lot of the work that's happening in the name of community engagement, and service learning is something, in my opinion, that's actually happening inside of the classroom with the intentionality of community development, student learning, and faculty enhancement.
Is there a specific event that happens annually that the community and the students contribute the most to?
We have a lot of big ticket items, but the one that always comes to my mind, and I think it has a lot to do with the nature of the program, the timing of the program, and the purpose of the program, and that is Mountain Heritage Day. Mountain Heritage Day engages 20 to 30,000 citizens from across the region and even outside of our state who descend upon Western Carolina University, and they get one day to see what it feels like to be here every day. And a lot of folks in the community have referred to Mountain Heritage Day as a celebration of our mountain heritage and our culture here, historically speaking, and also as a chance to start to fully embrace that transition from the summer into the fall. And for me, Mountain Heritage Day means fall semester is here and we are back at it. I just love that day. It engages around 130 student volunteers. That's one of the ones where I think the community comes together with the region and then with our campus and with our students and with our faculty, and it just captures the spirit of community engagement in so many ways.
Sadly, I've missed the past 2 years, but I'm making a commitment to go next year for sure. It's a priority.
One of those turkey legs, and you'll
yes, I see everyone have the turkey legs. That's what grabs my attention the most. Yeah. What can students get the most out of when participating for the Center for Community Engagement and Service Learning?
You know, I think in the beginning you can feel better about yourself. That's one of the things. You can start to shape an identity about who you are as a person, and maybe a little bit or a lot of bit of who you are has something to do with wanting to give back to the communities that, whether you recognize it or not, has given so much to you. You know, it takes a village to raise and to inform anyone, and I think that there's a lot of people who realize that. Additionally, and a little bit further afar than that, when you start getting into the deeper ends of service, it can lead you to asking questions that otherwise you would never ask. Instead of accepting smaller answers and taking them for face value, where the learning is in the service is inherently in the questions that are asked, the questions that otherwise you would not be able to get to. And that has the academic value associated with it. And then in turn, when you're asking questions that otherwise you wouldn't have asked, you're pursuing answers that otherwise you would have never gotten. And those answers are what advance our society, our communities, and ultimately ourselves.
What do you recommend students do with their time here at Western?
I recommend they find what makes their heart sing. They find the thing that helps them shape their identity. They find the thing that inspires them. They find the thing that gets them up in the morning. Because oftentimes, the thing that gets you up in the morning is also the thing that gets you to sleep at night. Because if you find the thing that gets you up in the morning and you dedicate yourself to it and you push on that, you'll be exhausted at the end of the day because you've poured your whole self, the best and the most that you have, into that thing. And that can be exhausting. And so for me, community engagement is the thing that gets me up in the morning, but it's also the thing that throughout the day exhausts me and lets me have a really great night's rest every single night to get up and do it again.
I can already assume what you're going to say to this question, but should they consider involving themselves in the Community Engagement Service Learning Organization?
Oh, yes. If you haven't considered it yet, I suggest you come and do it. And I bet for most of you, you have considered it, but you maybe just didn't know the first place to start. And so hopefully this has helped clarify some of those questions. Because again, journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. It just begins with a simple yes, follow through, and as I love to always say, a wonderful quote is, a single event can awaken a stranger inside of you. And you never know what that event's going to be. And hopefully one of those events is something that the Center for Community Engagement puts on.
I can vouch for that. My engagement with volunteering and service learning has progressed a lot since last semester. I agree. It definitely brings out a different person in me. It makes me feel better about myself, and it makes me look at the world in a different way. It helps me take on the day, and it's just like my ray of sunshine, I would say, kind of. I know it sounds silly. Volunteering has opened up a lot of doors for me recently, and I'm definitely going to get engaged more. Is there any other things you would like to mention about the Center for Community Engagement and Service Learning organization that we did not touch on?
You know, I think I covered the whole spectrum there. I mean, the Center for Community Engagement is a lot more than me. It includes Jennifer Cooper, Amanda Hansen, Sydney Habouche, battery of GAs, graduate assistants, and students, student workers who come in there to help make all the work we do possible. But at the end of the day, without students who care, without a community willing to help, and without faculty who also are inspired by this work, we would just be an office in the middle of an old hallway.
I appreciate you coming out and giving us all of this information that a lot of these students do need, and all the advice and information with this organization. Thank you for your time, Dr. Perry. For WWCU, I'm Madison Fair.